Welcome back. You're watching Global Eye. Moving our focus to the Russia-Ukraine war and support from the United States now. Nearly 20 former U.S. officials have written an open letter urging the U.S. to arm Ukraine before it's too late. The senior officials say that they have been closely watching Moscow's foreign policy and the danger it poses to the U.S. as well as its allies. The Ukraine war, they say, has reached a decisive moment and the U.S. must ramp up volumes of arms going to Ukraine. While the Biden administration has given a substantial portion of military aid, it hasn't helped push back Russian forces. The letter adds U.S. is reluctant to supply more, fearing it may escalate the situation, both on conventional and nuclear fronts. The cautiousness of these senior officials reduces the pressure on Moscow to stop the offensive in Ukraine and be open to negotiations. To understand what is at stake for the United States, the implications of this war, and the potential to put an end to it, we're joined by John E Herbst, former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine. Thank you for joining us, Ambassador. Let me begin by asking you, in your letter, you have said that the military aid by U.S. and allies has failed to deliver a satisfactory strategic narrative. Why do you feel so?
It's very simple. Putin's aims are not limited to eastern Ukraine. First, he wants to take full political control of the country. But worse than that, from the standpoint of the United States, he wants to exercise substantial influence over our NATO allies that used to be part of the Soviet Union, the 3 Baltic states, and also NATO allies that used to be part of the Warsaw Pact, which was under Kremlin control in Soviet times. So Putin's a direct threat to vital American interests, and the place for the United States to stop him is in Ukraine.
All right, Ambassador, billions has been extended to Ukraine, the government there, in terms of military aid. What should be the next level of assistance when it comes to monetary aid to ramp up military activity and also equipment? What kind of equipment would you want the U.S. to share with Ukraine as the next step in this war?
The U.S., since the fall, when the Russian threat clearly emerged, has always been slow and timid in responding to Ukraine's request for advanced arms. So we only began to send Stingers to Ukraine right after, in early February, just before the big invasion. And the things that Ukraine needs now are things they've been asking for months. They need fighter jets, the MiGs that our NATO allies have. They need longer range artillery. We've sent them artillery now at the range of 85 kilometers. We should be sending them artillery with a range of 150 or even 300 kilometers. They need advanced tanks, which we have. They need armored personnel carriers, which we have. All these things we can provide, and we've been, again, timid about providing. And this is a strategic mistake.
In the letter, the diplomats have also referred to the point that US and EU are not making their objectives clear. Do you feel that they're not coming hard enough when it comes to Russia, when it comes to Putin? In this war, Putin has clearer objectives than US and its allies?
I think that's absolutely true. In some not fully explicit way, they understand that what Putin's doing is dangerous. But they have not clearly looked at what he's said and what he's done and recognized that his objectives, his aggressive designs, do not end in Ukraine. They go beyond Ukraine to NATO and EU states. And if they need, the US should be stating this clearly to explain to the American public. The EU should be stating this clearly to explain to the EU public that, in fact, Putin's aggressive designs are coming for them. And if they understand that, they will clearly understand the need to help Ukraine defeat Putin in Ukraine.
Right. At what stage of the war are we? Do you see Putin coming to the negotiating table seriously? According to some estimates, the way the war is going on may continue till the end of 2023. Do you think the policy right now of US and key allies is tiring out Russia, tiring out Putin, or not yet?
Putin, despite the Russian defeats around Kyiv, the Russian defeats around Chernihiv in the north of Ukraine, still wants to take effective political control of the country. The only way to dissuade him, to force him to negotiate, is to defeat him on the battlefield. As long as he thinks he can win by war, he'll continue the war. That's why the most important thing now is to help Ukraine with all these advanced weapons to stop the Russians in Ukraine. Then we can talk, then the negotiations become a real possibility. Negotiations that will lead to a permanent peace, not to a ceasefire,
Right.
followed by continued Kremlin aggression.
Right. As you've said in your letter, that US and allies have been worried about a full-blown escalation. Do you think US should be ready for that, considering the long-term impact in case Russia succeeds in this war or manages to continue this war for as long as it wants?
We definitely need to be prepared for a long struggle. Because again, Putin's aims are aims that are hostile to the United States, to the EU, and to NATO. We need to be concerned about escalation, but the best way to prevent escalation is to defeat Putin in Ukraine.
Right. Ambassador, my final set of questions now. When it comes to Vladimir Putin and Russia, there have been several packages of sanctions that have been imposed against the Russian government, the oligarchs, Putin's family, Putin himself, Russian businesses. So many private sector companies have pulled out of Russia. What more can be done in order to put diplomatic and economic pressure on the Russian government?
The one thing that really has not happened are sanctions on most Russian banks. That's a step that could be taken. That's related to the SWIFT payment system. People have been reluctant to do that. I think it's time for serious consideration of that step.
Right. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us here, giving us your view on what needs to be done at this decisive moment in the Russia-Ukraine war. You're urging the United States and key allies of America to seize this moment and further arm the Ukrainian government and the military. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.